Welcome to Conversate, our podcast where we engage in conversation. And on this week's episode, Aaron and Kevin are talking about peace, and in particular, peace in our finances, as we begin a new sermon series on peace. And so we're gonna talk in this conversation about the realities of money and how the Bible talks about it. So you'll hear us share our own personal experiences and stories, and we just want this to be an encouragement to you that you can practice the way of Jesus and find peace in your finances. God be with you. Hopefully you'll hear something in this conversation and start another conversation with somebody else. We hope you enjoy it. You ready for this? Boom.
Good morning, Aaron.
Hey, buddy.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I was handed yesterday some pictures from a trail cam nearby where I shot the big buck last year. Mm-hmm. Pictures of a big buck. So
coming back around.
So deer head number 2. Get ready.
Yeah, you getting excited? You got the buck mug in your hand this morning.
Got the buck mug going.
Now, when is that? When is
November 15th?
November 15th. Is it always November 15th?
It is.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
Yeah, it's different in different states. Like I think in Minnesota, Wisconsin, it's like on a whatever weekend,
In connection to Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah. Or just like I'm making it up like the second Saturday in November or third Saturday in November, something
Does
like
it follow lunar phases?
I don't know.
Like Easter?
I don't know.
Probably just not. Google it. Google it. They'll tell you when. But November 15th. Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta scope out my stand.
But
yeah, too soon for me. After last year, but we don't talk about that.
I don't think you publicly ever said anything about it, and now you're ready to talk about it.
Definitely not.
Oh,
don't even want to think about it. But you can ask me if you want.
All right, that's enough inside jokes.
Yeah, for one day.
I told a joke yesterday.
You did. It was a joke about money.
Yesterday being whenever you are listening to this. It was the day before. Whenever.
It's all relative to you, listener.
Yeah.
We're orbiting around your existence.
Yeah. Yesterday I told a joke. Anyway. Yeah.
How did it go?
Well, you can tell it in a variety of different ways, but I don't know if I made up the joke, but in my mind I made it up at home. Because basically, if my kids ever say, that makes sense, I say, and dollars. I just throw it in. So the other, it was because of my children that I said that joke, because at some point over the weekend or whatever, they were saying something about how I like to tell jokes and how I haven't told a joke at church in a long time or something. They're like, you should tell that dollar and cent joke. And I was like, I'm talking about money.
Like, it's perfect.
I gotta figure out a way to do it. So, yeah. I said, it wasn't even during the sermon, just during announcements. I said I was going to tell a joke to lighten the mood, because talking about finances can be tricky business, and so I just said I only know one related or one money joke, and it doesn't really make sense. Or dollars.
And there was uproarious laughter. It was like, oh, shoot. Well, they did that. Well, they did some stuff. That's pretty much how it went.
You would think the fact that we have 4 buttons, we would have it memorized by now which ones do what.
It just means we're not using them enough. That's my conclusion.
Oh, yeah. We did resolve to use the buttons more.
Or was that our New Year's resolution?
Yeah. Back when we were going to get the new studio.
Hey, it's still coming. It's still coming.
I know
it's in the works.
The construction is uproarious around here.
But yeah, okay, so you told this joke, this money-related joke, because like you said, we're starting a new sermon series here at the church where we're kind of having some of these, conversations around topics that are harder to talk about, or maybe harder to talk about because, I suppose because they're so engraved in our lives. I mean, these different things are like everyone does it, like they affect our reality every single day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Yeah. And I think I don't know. I don't I don't know what you listener, your experience is with money, how, hopefully a lot of you have a very healthy relationship with your finances and with your spouse and your family when it comes to finances and with God and with your giving. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of you that are at peace and living according to the plans that God has for you. I hope so. But then the reality still is, like, I mean, money is in almost every conversation, definitely every decision that we're going to make. Like, if you're going to go out to lunch, it's like, well, what restaurant am I going to go to? Is it going to be based on what I feel like, or based on how much money I have in my wallet, So eventually you get down to that, and then you got to give money for your lunch, one way or another. You're either going to think about it or you're not, but money was still involved. It's like kids need new clothes to go back to school. It's like, well, are we, shopping at a boutique or at the dollar store? It's like,
I've recently even been putting my son William down to sleep on occasion. This is not an every night sort of thing, but by using our vehicle to drive him around.
Oh, really?
Because he can be quite resistant to the sleep thing, but he sleeps so easy in the car. It's wonderful. But we're like, can we afford to do this? Like,
yeah, how much does it cost to put this kid to sleep?
Exactly. Yeah, I know. Like, so even with that decision, it's like it's kind of tangential. It's off to the side, but it's still there. It's still floating around.
Oh, I know,
because it impacts so much.
Well, we were doing like some energy efficiency stuff at our house, and there are different ways to like measure how much certain electrical stuff costs and things. And I was thinking about figuring out how much it cost me to take a sauna in my electric sauna in the basement.
Oh, sure. And
I was like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. This is part of what I do, and I don't want to know. I don't want to sacrifice it. I do not want to be thinking, what does this cost me?
That was sort of take away the peacefulness of it, probably.
Yeah.
It's chinging in your head.
Yeah.
But yeah, so one, money affects so many things in our life, so it's this pervasive piece. But then two, and I brought this out in your sermon, which is sort of an entryway. Whoa, hey! I think our video, if you're watching right now, you just saw balloons float to the sky.
I don't know how you do balloons, but
I
don't know how to turn this off on the camera. But
I don't
you want to
either.
see something cool?
Yeah, please.
Hold on.
Dude, that is cool.
Maybe I have to do two of them. Hold on, let me set the mic down.
Okay. Oh, man. Whoa. Holy cow. We need to start the show every time like that. That'd be awesome.
You can do all kinds of stuff.
What was that? That's going to be... Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. All right. I'm done, but I need to figure out how to turn that off.
There are ways it's on like every... Because
it's built into the... Wait. Why is it coming through... We're using not even the...
That's
camera.
what I'm saying. Because I've seen this on Skype. I've seen it on Facebook. It happens. This is what we were concerned about with AI.
Yeah. It's like, no, seriously, you want random balloons floating on your screen.
Look,
I don't.
You've derailed the conversation, technology. We'll talk about you some other day.
Yeah.
But okay, so one, money's pervasive. Two, though, and you brought that in your sermon, is Jesus is very pointed in the scriptures, like in his teaching, about what do I say? Like the power of money over the human heart.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like and that's regardless of your financial situation, by the way. But Luther will draw that out anyway in his explanation of the first commandment. It doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or a little money. No one is safe, so to speak, from the power of money and its ability to sort of draw us into unhealthy habits or ideas or thoughts or actions, etc.
Oh my goodness. I know. I mean, just in my life, like I've met some, very wealthy people, according to, worldly standards financially, who are incredibly generous. We also know stories about incredibly wealthy people who are incredibly selfish. I've met very poor people living in poverty that are some of the most generous people. But then there are also people living in poverty that will, cling onto every last thing and just strive for the next dollar, thinking that it's going to be the money that's going to, change their heart and their attitude and all that stuff. And so, so yeah, I mean, I've seen it, experienced it in real ways with real people. Yeah. I mean, in the sermon, and we'll have this conversation here today too. Like the intent was really for, really getting after our heart, like because that's where the problem lies, and also where the joy can lie too, and the peace, right? And so it's just this war being waged within us, and God gives us some very real ways to actually like work on our hearts, some disciplines, like practices that we can actually do. And we like, I don't know, we end up sometimes not talking as much about the things that like the Bible tells us to do. And I think, I don't know. I think that's a little bit in our theological tradition, because if we're gonna tilt the scale between like you're saved by faith or you're saved by what you do, we're taking it to you're saved by faith, on account of Jesus Christ alone. And so sometimes we get a little skittish on stuff you should do,
and not because it saves you, like in a eternal perspective,
right,
but it does actually have effects for your daily life.
Yeah, like peace.
Yeah.
So we're talking practically, and the Bible's quite clear about this idea of giving a tithe. And so I taught through what a tithe is, teaching like that it's a biblical word meaning literally a tenth, so we're just walking through the scriptures about that. But then, when we get to Jesus in particular, Jesus he talks about money so much, it just almost more than any other topic. It's all over the place. I think it's 16 of the parables out of 30 some parables. 16 of them have to do with money and treasures. And so it's just like, it's just all over the place, because it's the thing. It's this thing that's everywhere in every decision, and it it captivates our hearts. It just for whatever reason,
Well, and I would say, when I think about like some reasons it might, money is opportunity. Like money is power and influence. Money does have a very tangible connection to the things you're able to do or not do in your life.
That's fair.
And if you go back to like Genesis, part of the struggle there, part of the reason humanity falls away from God is because they don't want to live in a trust relationship with him. They want to be able to take matters into their own hands, right? They want to be able to control, but it's interesting, even thinking about, how often Jesus talked about it, going back to that idea of like, it doesn't matter how much money you have in terms of it being an issue or a challenge. Because think about the time in which we live and the money we have in comparison to probably Jesus' average listener. It's unbelievably different.
Yeah.
They lived in a time, in most of human history lived in an agrarian society, where literally your profits are entirely dependent upon things you can't control, like the weather. And that's not the case today. Like much of our jobs and systems are much more like efficient. They're not as faith dependent, I guess you'd say, but they're more like, hey, you can increase efficiency, you can lower the bottom line, you can do all these little hacks to increase your profit margin. So we have more control ever these days, which probably makes Jesus' teaching on this particular topic all the more powerful for us.
And all the more, hopefully if you have a relationship with Jesus, hearing a hard word is maybe appreciated. As much as it might be a hard word to hear, it's like, hearing from, if you play sports, like from a beloved coach of yours, telling you, hey, you messed up. Like you didn't make the tackle. Like the guy scored. Like you didn't do what we taught you to do, shape up, do better. Right. It's this, but when it's coming out of a place of love, from somebody that you respect, that wants what's good for you, hopefully the word that we hear from Jesus, it might be a challenging word. It might be a word of conviction, but not a word that's going to make us go, I don't like you anymore, Jesus. I'm done. I quit.
Sure. Sure.
It might, and it has for people. I've heard, like in secular culture. I was even having this conversation with a member yesterday whose adult, child like walked away from the church because they said the church is just always asking for money. And this the person was telling me like that hasn't been my experience, like that's not what I hear, but I've heard that message like from secular people, I don't know, even in my sermon, like I just kind of called that out, even like this idea of like, well, here, even in my ministry, I don't know that we even talked about it enough. I don't know. We weave in like stewardship, of time and talents and God calling back our hearts all the time, but to specifically like teach about money in our lives, we haven't a lot. I don't know. You probably haven't even preached a sermon like that in your,
no,
3.5 years of being here.
I was gonna say, like, I think it comes in occasionally, like as it connects to, like if we're talking about idolatry or talking about this or that thing, like it might come in as a side piece, but it's terms of like a front and center, like, hey, we're gonna teach on this. Yeah, that hasn't been a significant part of our practice. But I think, I was really glad that you shared that at the beginning of your sermon, because I think that young man's experience, it's unfortunate because like no matter what pastor or what church he was hearing from that was speaking that way, if he heard it from the sense of like, yeah, like God's just out to take my money, then there's a total misunderstanding of what God's even about, which was like the point of your sermon, right? God is actually after your heart. Yeah. God is desiring to establish us. And the challenge and the difficulty for us is that we want to establish ourselves in so many other ways.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but also out there, especially on TV,
right?
There are, some of these preachers that unfortunately they preach a prosperity gospel that says, if you give more to the church, God will bless you more. And the blessings will be evidence of God's faithfulness to us. So, I mean, I thought it was a parody the first time I saw it, but there's this one, pastor dude saying, he's got this one private jet. It's a video of him out in front of his private jet. He's like, this one's not enough anymore. God's got bigger things for us. I'm praying over the whatever this model number was for some other fancy private jet. And he's like, I'm praying the Lord will bless us to be able to do this so that we can, continue to share the gospel all over the world. But we need you to step up and that'll multiply in your life. And it's like, okay, I mean, that's just, so that puts a bad taste in people's mouths,
Oh, absolutely. Course. Yeah.
Obviously not for some though, for some that it's motivating and they still participate, because I think that's the temptation, if stuff's rough in your life and somebody's telling you,
do this,
and it's going to make it better. Well, I guess I'll give it a shot, and if it's not, and then they'll tell you, well, if it's not getting better yet, you probably just got to give more, keep going. It's like, that's the whole salvation by works thing. If you're going to, take it into the financial
and the whole motivating factor, like behind that is it's all based off of guilt and fear.
Oh yeah.
That's the whole thing.
Not peace.
No. And not a reflection of, not a response to the incredible grace in which God has demonstrated in all our lives, and which you went to in the sermon too. Like Jesus didn't tithe his blood, he gave it all, and he gave it all to a people who were, who didn't deserve it, who hadn't earned it, who hadn't, money wasn't as much of money was part of, I suppose, Jesus' crucifixion, but it's not like the rest of the disciples, received the blessing immediately because they had given their own money and their own time. No, like they all deserted him.
Right.
But he gave himself completely, and it's because of that. Like this is why, we give back in response to what God has done. I think we even
and man, there was so much I wanted to say, and I think this is probably why a lot of pastors, when they're preaching, preach a stewardship series.
Sure.
There was more to say that got cut out that I didn't say, and what I really wanted to say too was like that. Not only can you be at peace with your finances, but like money and giving can actually be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can actually be an incredible blessing to give, right? Jesus says that it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Yep.
Right. Because I wanted to point that out and point out the reality of the fact that our rally day even happened, the fact that we were able to have these inflatable things and food and all this stuff. It's all because of the generosity of people, it's because of generosity and donations and all these things that, so the ability to even have that kind of fun celebration is because of the generous hearts of people. And so, and there's great joy in giving. I would love to be at a place, at some point in life. Right now, my main priority at home besides, tithing is really, making sure my kids have food to eat and a place to, lay their heads that's
food,
warm,
clothes, and shelter.
Yeah. Right. And that's about it, but that I'm fine with that. But I'd love to be at that place, to be able to just, bless abundantly or
surprisingly,
extravagantly to tip, just like at a restaurant, extravagant. You hear these stories and stuff. And, so I talked about Financial Peace University, this class my wife and I went through and that we want to offer here. I think that's how it I think one of the last sessions or whatever. But Dave Ramsey, who's the instructor of that class, one of his phrases is if you live like no one else, later you get to give like no one else. That's kind of the idea, which is there's just sort of this call to the fact that most people in the world are not living sacrificially and living within their means. There's a lot of just extravagance and crazy debt loads people are carrying. You hear the statistics about just the debts, the student debts, the credit card debts. It's just through the roof. So people are dealing with all kinds of stuff. So the whole idea of living within your means, keeping a budget, giving,
it's a bit unique.
It's unique. It's kind of weird. It's not normal, So his thing is live like no one else. Don't live like the world is living, and that you'll be able to give like no one else. And I think that's something worthwhile to strive for. Kind of fun,
Well, yeah, and I think it's living into that, believing the words, it is better to give than to receive. That's the whole idea that, if you're doing that, if you're living modestly now so that you can give later, you're going to also multiply not just peace, but also joy in giving. There was a study done. I can't remember where I saw this, but it was, some kind of experiment basically. And what they did was they gave, whatever group gave money to two groups of individuals. So they gave them the same amount of money, but to the one half, they just gave it to him and said, hey, use it however you want. Yeah. And then to the other half, they said, here's some money, but you need to go spend it on someone else.
Yeah.
And then they surveyed the results following this, after people spent the money. And what they found was there actually was a higher satisfaction rate from the group that had to give the money away.
Have I ever told you that 2 different times here we did we called it a $2 challenge.
I was here for one of them.
Oh, you were?
During the when we did, I think maybe it was a Barna. I want to say Spiritually Vibrant Home, like neighbor, because we were trying to be like neighborly. Yeah. There was. I think we did a $20 challenge on that one.
Yeah. That was like if you wanted it, we'd give you $20. But in the past, when we did the $2, we just everybody leaving church, we gave you an envelope with $2 in it, and you could you couldn't use it on yourself, and then we like made a rule that you could only add $5 to it.
Okay. Yeah.
So up to $7.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, it's pointless if somebody's got a lot of money and you give them $2 and it's like, go do something generous. But to it's almost like it's like the widow's mite thing. Like, what could God do with just
$2
with a little?
Yeah.
It's pretty. I mean, I still got a bunch of, because we had people like submit stories and stuff, and I stumbled upon that recently, and it was cool to like go back through that again and see all the unique creative ways and the blessings that came from that. So
well, that was, in your sermon, you shared that story from Abby, and Abby back in the seminary days, and it made me think of my own. And I bet there's, kind of the same idea of like, if you polled, the church and asked about stories of like God's providence in a time of need, to kind of drive home that idea of God's fatherly, tenderly care of us, and that we don't need to be anxious. You just reminded me of when Molly and I were in the seminary. Actually, like my fall semester, I considered leaving because of financial reasons. Like I was not confident that we were going to have enough, and I was thinking from sort of a mindset of like, well, basically, if I don't have the means to make this all work, there's no way it can happen then. Yeah. And I went into, this was before I learned about the Adopt a Student program. So the Adopt a Student program at the seminary is they'll have folks, within, well, kind of all over. They're not necessarily in St. Louis, but all over, who want to give money to seminary students. And so you would, but it wasn't necessarily consistent. Like some people would send in, every whatever time, every quarter, they'd send you a little bit of money, and you could kind of depend on it. But there were others, it was like, you never knew when it was going to come, and you didn't know what amount. But then like there were times like where things were so, like seemed so dire, and we were so concerned, and it was like, I don't know how we're going to make it through. But then a donation would come in, and it was sort of this like gentle reminder of like, it's not on you, man. Like, I will take care of you,
my dad was telling me a story, because my folks were in town for
Rally Day weekend.
Yeah. If you're listening to this in like 2027, they were here on September 8th, 2024.
There you go.
But so they were here to hear me preach.
Also, how are the hover cars?
Yeah. Hover cars are cool. Yeah. You tell us.
Exactly.
Come back. Yeah. Okay. But he told me, and I'd never heard this story before, but he said he specifically remembers at some point writing a check for their tithe for my mom and dad, and him knowing how much money they had in the checking account, knowing that and knowing where their income sources were from, that if somehow money didn't just show up, that the check was going to bounce. And he said he remembers this specifically. Somebody gave him $50 that week, and that was the the amount of the difference. And he was just like, I mean, I've got stories like that too, and it's not always like money just showing up randomly from random people, but I don't know, man. A number of people talked to me yesterday, and shared some stories and stuff too. Somebody was telling me about when they grew up, like the dad left the family with his mom and kids and stuff, and they didn't have much, and it was just mom with a bunch of kids, and dad had left, and but the mom would always tithe off the top and tell the kids, and this person was telling me, like, as a kid, thinking like we could really use that money, like why are we giving it to the church? But mom would say, we're not going to cheat God. And so just, I just think from a worldly perspective, this conversation though, people might say like, it sounds like financial irresponsibility.
Sure.
That sounds,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound smart. It sounds like you're, what are you doing? Like testing God or like, it's like, it's not, and it's not even God testing us. It's just like, I hope I expressed this in the sermon. I just know from my own heart, it's like, if money is my end goal, there's never going to be enough.
Yep.
There just won't.
Yeah.
And I know this, like throughout life, is if income increased, expenses somehow increased with it,
I hear you. Yeah.
And then it's always just like, well, okay, well, I guess maybe the Lord is providing as I have need, but yeah.
Well, it's ultimately what you're getting at, or the question that everyone has to kind of ask themselves is, what is the reigning reality of my existence? Is it that money is the answer to everything and it will provide and it will get me through? Or is it there actually is a God, a creator, who looks down upon his creation with love and care, right, and has promised to watch over us and take care of us?
Right. Yeah. So it's just like, yes. And just the reality of the discipline of like the tithe, which is 10%. And again, even if it's not 10%, if it's 2% or 1%, whatever it is that you're able to give, hopefully you can give something, right? Even that poor widow who gave 2 mites, Jesus said
she gave more than
the rich people gave. So everybody has the capacity to give to some degree, and the discipline of that is there, again, not to save you, not to guarantee that you're somehow going to have more money. You're not. You'll literally have less.
Yep, kind of goes with the territory. Yeah.
But you'll recognize that God's got you. It's a heart shaping discipline. It's just like any healthy discipline in life. It's just like I don't know. You don't have to exercise or eat well in order to live. You don't have to exercise or eat well to have a saving faith in Jesus Christ.
That's right.
But like exercising and eating healthy food is probably going to make your existence in this life maybe more joyful, like less painful. Like you can do stuff, you can be fit, So there are these disciplines, and that's not even, I mean, I don't know, we could make biblical cases that exercising and, eating well are biblical things, but it's just,
absolutely. Yeah.
The same thing with, financial giving. It's God provides this discipline for us, not because he needs our money, but because it shapes our hearts to trust in him. And it's just this practice that's there that I think in time proves itself and proves that God is faithful. And eventually it's like, I can't even imagine a different way of living. Like I don't want to go back to being financially ill. I don't want to go back to being physically ill, you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, I just, I hope you hear our hearts in this, right? That it's not the prosperity gospel that we're preaching. It's not like, if you give, God's going to give to you and bless you.
God's not a formula. He's a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's relational. So it's not insert coin here, receive this at the bottom, but it is this invitation to radically trust in God and a protective measure against our heart's natural inclination to trust in something that won't save you.
Yeah.
It won't save you and it won't forgive you. All it can ever do, can it provide you? Sure. But it can also sort of speak that same guilt and fear into you, like we were talking about earlier, that says, you need a little more of me. I don't think you got enough. Yeah. Come on. Keep working. Keep pushing. Yeah. Come on. Load up. Save up. You never know what's coming around the corner. That's a very fear-oriented way to
Oh, my
live.
goodness.
And Jesus says, that's not the reigning reality of your existence. God is. And he'll provide for you. Trust in him. Don't trust in that. Trust in him.
Yep. Yep. That's a good word. So there's much more that can be said. But I would just kind of tag on here.
Yeah.
Again, if you're listening to this in 2027, I don't know. Maybe
should I invest in Bitcoin?
Yeah.
No, I'm just
maybe there is no more money. I don't know. Maybe it's gone. Gold.
We're back to the barter system.
Okay, sorry. But if you're listening to this, as it's coming out, Financial Peace University is something that we want to offer again at our church here. But if I'll just say, like, if participating in the actual class is not a possibility for you, there are options for you to do it on your own online. Just Google Financial Peace University. I can't recommend it enough. I don't get any commission for you participating in it, but I will promote it like crazy. Is the best thing that my wife and I did in our marriage and for our kids. And so look out for that. If you're with us kind of live, and if it's in 2027, hopefully Financial Peace University is still a reality. I did it 16 years ago. I don't think it's going anywhere.
It's gonna stick around.
Yep. All right, buddy. It's good chat for today. Peace to you, bud.
Peace.